Perpetual motion, a world where the boundaries of science and the imagination blur. The concept of perpetual motion stands as a tantalizing illusion. But what if we consider perpetual motion not just as a physical phenomenon, but as a metaphor for the lies that we weave? The tale of perpetual motion reflects our deepest desires, the yearning for endless energy, where the energy stems from the lies that we tell to hide our truths, for a truth that can sustain itself without collapse. But the lie that feeds on the truth needs a lie to continue to grow. As we unravel the layers of this enigma, we find ourselves questioning the very nature of truth and deception. Much like the prophet dumbwaiter, who spins tales that intertwine fabrication and fascination.
Frauditor Busters. Exposing First Amendment auditors one frauditor at a time.
Our journey today commences with the Dummy Kruger video. A defense attorney and I unravel the mystery behind a 25-year-old case, where DK reveals a bombshell regarding dumbwaiter's driver's license. But let's start with dumbwaiter on the stand committing perjury. For reasons.
Well, he actually got put on probation as part of his plea deal for these 3 charges, with one of the requirements being that he needed to show proof of insurance before December 2nd, 1998. And that's exactly what he did on October 12th. He and Georgette purchased insurance together on the Mustang, with the address being 246 Lea Way, an address he claims to never have heard of, which happens to also be where Chris was cited for possession and drug paraphernalia. The probation requirement was the reason they put this insurance in both of their names, not Georgette trying to lower her insurance policy like he and Tiffany just tried to claim. No, he had to do this as a requirement.
But that 246 Lea Way address, was that your address?
No, I've never. I lived in Indiana.
Okay, normally for a story like this, that would be enough. But I saved a monster bombshell regarding this address for last. A couple of months later, after all this happened on December 15th, Chris was pulled over yet again and charged with speeding, no insurance again, which was cleared up quickly because he just didn't have proof of his new policy. But the last charge is the kicker. Failure to notify DOT of address change because he was still driving with an Indiana driver's license, though he told the officer he had lived in Kentucky for 2 months. This last line really cracked me up because 2024 Chris is still using the old "I only lived in Kentucky for 2 months" line, which we know isn't true because he was arrested in April of 1999 for assaulting his girlfriend at their Kentucky home. And this is where it gets really interesting. For that new citation, he originally pleaded not guilty to speeding, but eventually agreed to state traffic school. He had the no insurance dismissed because he showed proof of his new policy that listed an address he's claiming he's never heard of. And charge number 3, the failure to notify DOT of address change, was also dismissed on February 17th because he got a new Kentucky driver's license. Now, the only remaining question I had at this point was, I wonder what address was listed on this new driver's license. Surely it couldn't be for a residence he had no knowledge of, right?
But that 246 Lea Way address, was that your address?
No, I've never. I lived in Indiana.
And here is where we go full circle yet again, because we have to revisit the 1999 assault and DV case I discussed last Friday, when Chris was arrested the second time after violating the DV order on April 21st. He actually had another arraignment on that same day because he failed to complete the state driving school that he agreed to because his license was suspended. And deep down in this case file is where I found it. His freshly minted new Kentucky driver's license number with the address of 246 Leah Way. Whew. And that, folks, is what we call ball game.
I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but as Dummy Kruger pointed out, a Kentucky driver's license with the address 246 Leah Way was issued to Dumbwaiter in 1998. But let's go have a look at what Prophet Dumbwaiter has to say about all of this from one of his recent videos.
Hey guys, for public safety here. If you've been following the channel lately, then you're probably well aware that there have been a handful of people who have claimed to have had intimate knowledge of the details of my case.
I wonder what address was listed on this new driver's license.
You had an ID in Kentucky.
An ID, not a license.
Right.
But wait, didn't Dummy Kruger say that he and the attorney from Kentucky, known as the DUI guy, got all my records and that's what they've been sharing with you guys?
When Chris was arrested the second time after violating the DV order on April 21st, he actually had another arraignment on that same day because he failed to complete the state driving school that he agreed to because his license was suspended. And deep down in this case file is where I found it.
Someone posted on the internet an image that would suggest that a driver's license in the state of Kentucky was obtained back in the late 90s in my name.
His freshly minted new Kentucky driver's license number with the address of 246 Leah Way.
If that's the case, that sure would be damning, wouldn't it?
Whew. And that, folks, is what we call ball game.
Wait a minute. Are you sure?
Yeah, see, that's a fake thing because our driver's license numbers don't start with like KY0.
Wait. What?
You know what I'm saying? So that's like something that they're making up.
Are you,
just
serious?
Are you telling me that it's possible that a troll channel lied?
That's just something that they've made up.
Or maybe it's just as I've explained to everyone all along, that it's possible that the records that are available might be fraudulent?
Okay, first let's start with the white elephant in the room. In that clip we just heard the woman from the Motor Vehicle Licensing Division say this.
Driver's license numbers don't start with like KY0.
Now, to be fair to that person on the phone, she might not be aware that Kentucky changed their numbering system. There was a House bill that was passed in 1994, and the legislation went into effect in 1996. So, pre-96, a Kentucky driver's license was KY, XXX, XX, XXXX, where those X's are numbers. As you can see in these photos of old Kentucky driver's licenses. Post-1996, a Kentucky driver's license is the first letter of your last name, and the next two numbers are the year that it was first issued, as shown here in this sample. Now, it should be noted that any driver's licenses issued between 1994 and 1996 with the old numbering system were still valid until they expired 4 years later. Once these licenses were renewed by the end of 2000, 2001 would have seen the old system taken offline and archived. Let's take a look at the document that Dummy Kruger found. At the top we have dlic.ql.ky08 and the rest of it's redacted. Now this could be a throwback to the pre-1996 system, remembering this is in 98. So it does take time to transfer old records over to the new system, and there would be driver's licenses that were issued pre-96 that would still be valid. So this could just be duplicated on the old system as a backup. The next line, and I'm going to surmise here what this line is telling me. SM079966 is the person who is generating the report. Remember that whenever you access a computer system, your details are also logged, and this is commonly referred to as a digital fingerprint. Next we have the date and time that the report was generated. That's self-explanatory. in length. Now, this tells me that an external agency accessed Kentucky's DMV database to retrieve these records. 10501 out GH could be the agency number and the agency's abbreviated name that accessed the database. And finally 00028 RSP to 00011. I believe this is a run number. The 28 is in response to run number 11. Now, as I said, I'm making an educated guess on this information, and this is based about what I've seen when I've requested information from other departments' databases. The next 4 lines are the interesting ones. We start off with 2 alpha characters, possibly MM, or it could be NN, followed by 7 numbers. And the first part of it's redacted, and in redacting that, they've also redacted his last name. Now, personally, I think that they were redacting the first 6 characters of the number above, and his last name was just an accidental redaction. Unless there is a second Christopher L. Ryder, God help us, we know it's Dumbwaiter, as we have the address 246 Leah Way, and we've seen that many a time. Now, on the last line, OLNR981. This is the new format for a Kentucky driver's license. OLN, operator's license number, R for writer, the first letter of his last name, then 98, which is the year that the license was first issued. This is where Dumbwaiter is trying to muddy the waters. In his video he shows this, a Kentucky ID card. Look at the date that it was issued, 03/24/99. And when was his driver's license issued? In 1998. So why does he have a Kentucky ID card issued in 99? Well, 04/19/1999, his driver's license was suspended because he failed to complete the court-ordered STS course. And for those of you who don't know, STS is State Traffic School. If you look at the 2 lines, date suspended expires 00000000, that is because his license won't be reinstated until he completes the STS course. Normally those zeros would have the last day your license is suspended to. And how do we know that Dumbwaiter had a Kentucky driver's license? Because he was ordered by the court to attend Kentucky State Traffic School, which, if he was on an interstate license or he didn't have a Kentucky license, he would not be eligible for STS. Next bit is specifically for my US viewers. Now, there are 2 important changes that have been made to US licenses. In 2004, President Bush signed into law barring states from issuing driver's licenses and ID cards and vehicle registrations with Social Security numbers, SSNs. And this is covered by Section 7214 of the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004, 42 USC 405 C2C6 2. And it explicitly prohibits printing Social Security numbers on identification documents issued by motor vehicle agencies, including driver's licenses and vehicle registrations. There's a reason behind this. It's an attempt to curb identity theft. The other important change happening across the United States is Real ID. Now, I'm going to stay in Kentucky, but this is applicable to other states as well. You will be able to get 2 types of driver's licenses: a real driver's license and a standard driver's license. What is the difference? A real ID driver's license will have a star in the right hand third of the driver's license. Now, Kentucky is allowing residents to apply for the Real ID driver's license even though it doesn't start until May the 7th, 2025, and that is to prevent a backlog of applications. So, effective from May the 7th, 2025, all residents or those allowed to work in the US will have to have real ID to be allowed to fly domestically, visit federal establishments, etc., etc. And from what I've read, any place that requires ID to be shown prior to entry. Now, Real ID is not designed as a federal identification system. It's going to be administered and maintained by the states. So how can you tell if your driver's license is Real ID or standard? In the right hand 1/3 of the license, there must be a star. If you have a standard driver's license or ID, then the words "not for Real ID purposes" will be printed on it, as shown in these two samples. Well, that's all I've got for this video. Dumbwaiter, you had a driver's license in Kentucky. That's proven. You had a Kentucky ID card. That's proven. You had your license suspended. That's been proven. So I think I'm going to leave this video with words from Dummy Kruger.
Whew. And that, folks, is what we call ball game.
Got him! Got him!
Until next time, bye.